The late-night start time was supposed to thin the crowd. The first set victory was supposed to be the beginning of something special. But when the final point was played at nearly 1 a.m., the aftermath left Cincinnati in total shock, not because of what happened on the court, but because of what happened in the stands. If organizers thought a late-night start time would thin out the crowd at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, they clearly underestimated Pinoy pride. The match against Amanda Anisimova, the world no. 10 and 9th seed at the $7.4 million Cincinnati Open began deep into the evening. The Filipino community in Cincinnati is estimated at fewer than 2,000 people. But that didn't matter. Fans traveled from across the region, staying glued to their seats past midnight to back their 21-year-old sensation. The match was a war. Eala drew first blood, taking the first set 6-4 with a commanding performance that showcased the resilience that had defined her North American hardcourt swing. The opening set alone lasted 67 minutes. She had survived a legendary fifth game, a 20-minute marathon featuring 13 deuces and 8 breakpoint opportunities for Anisimova. She had the momentum. She had the crowd. But as the clock ticked past midnight, the fatigue that had been building for 8 matches in 12 days across 2 countries finally caught up with her. Eala once again built a 3-2 lead in the second set, but Anisimova answered by winning 4 of the next 5 games to draw level and drag the Filipina to a deciding set. In the decider, Eala came out firing, unloading back-to-back backhand winners in Game 2 to snatch an early 2-0 lead. But Anisimova's heft serves soon proved too much to handle. The American swept the final 6 games to close out the match in 2 hours and 28 minutes. The defeat denied Eala what would have been a milestone 10th career win over a top 10 opponent. She dropped to 9-5 overall against the world's best. Her streak of 5 straight wins against top 10 players was snapped. And her earliest exit in 2 months was complete. Anisimova, for her part, acknowledged the challenge Eala presented. "I know Alex is such a great player and such a fighter. I knew it was going to be a really tough match," she said after the match. "There was quite a bit of support for me tonight, so I really appreciate that, because I know how loved Alex is, and for good reason." She joked about the late hour. "I felt like I needed a pick-me-up in this match because it's past my bedtime." But what happened after the match left Cincinnati in total shock. The thousands of fans who had packed the stadium, who had stayed past midnight, who had turned the venue into a sea of Filipino flags, were gone. Reports emerged that just 200 fans remained. The stands that had roared with "Eala! Eala!" were now empty. The question wasn't why the fans left. The question was, what did their absence really mean? To understand the collapse, you have to understand the 5th game of the first set. 20 minutes and 11 seconds. 13 deuces. 8 breakpoint opportunities for Anisimova. Eala survived. She held serve. She led 3-2 and eventually won the set. But that single game was a war of attrition that would come back to haunt her. The Cincinnati Open's official Twitter account called it what it was, a marathon game. Anisimova had been forced to work for every point. Eala had run more, chased more, and spent more energy in that single game than most players spend in entire matches. The exhaustion was invisible, but it was there. A ticking clock that would eventually run out. Anisimova broke through in the 7th game, breaking Eala at love to seize a 4-3 lead. But the Filipina, powered by adrenaline and defiance, responded with a 3-game surge to close out the set. She broke back immediately in the 8th game, held serve to regain the lead, and applied pressure on Anisimova's serve in the 10th to close out the set with a powerful backhand winner. The 67-minute set lasted longer than many matches, and Eala had done what champions do. She had found a way to win when it mattered most. The second set saw the first warning signs. Eala once again built a 3-2 lead, but Anisimova answered by winning 4 of the next 5 games to draw level and drag the Filipina to a deciding set. The solitary break proved decisive. Anisimova forced a decider. In the third set, Eala came out firing, unloading back-to-back backhand winners in Game 2 to snatch an early 2-0 lead. She was 5 points away from victory. 5 points away from her 10th career win over a top 10 opponent. 5 points away from a statement that would have echoed across the WTA. Then the fatigue that had been building for 2 hours finally caught up with her. On her serve, Eala was ahead 40-15 in the 5th game before Anisimova made a run, firing 2 well-placed winners to force deuce. A 7th double fault by Eala gave a breakpoint to the American, who converted with a forehand winner for a pivotal 3-2 lead. From there, Anisimova cruised, sweeping the final 6 games to close out the match in 2 hours and 28 minutes. It was a really tough match, so credit to Eala. She was playing some great tennis, so I'm really happy with this win, Anisimova said after the match. I'm really proud of this performance for being able to find a way and kind of push myself there in the middle of the match. She also acknowledged the crowd. There was quite a bit of support for me tonight, so I really appreciate that, because I know how loved Alex is, and for good reason. Eala's grit finally faltered for the first time since Wimbledon. The player who had conquered the toughest draw in Washington, who had beaten Olympic gold medalists and the world number 3, simply ran out of gas. The 20-minute war in the 5th game was the turning point. It was the moment when a body that had been pushed to its limits finally gave out. The shock of Eala's exit was magnified by the staggering numbers behind her Cincinnati appearance. According to Sam Querrey of Nothing Major, the ticket demand surrounding Eala's match against Anisimova was unlike anything the tournament had seen. The average ticket price on center court for her match was $160 higher per ticket compared to 2 nights earlier, and it was sold out. This was not the first time Eala had been a needle mover. The same phenomenon had played out in Toronto, where tournament director Carl Hale admitted, "We've never seen anything like that in Toronto before. It was unexpected." A report from local media suggested tournament officials had received approximately 53,000 ticket requests surrounding Eala's appearance. Whether exact or approximate, the number confirms what everyone already knew. The Eala Effect had arrived in Cincinnati with full force. The demand was so overwhelming that ticket prices surged by nearly 70% overnight, from approximately $75 to $127, yet the seats still sold out instantly. Even the resale market exploded, with second-round tickets that were once around $86 reaching up to $685. Anisimova, for her part, was fully aware of what she was walking into. "I know it's probably going to be a very packed stadium. I'm sure it will be really fun," she said before the match. She also acknowledged the weight of playing in front of a crowd that would be overwhelmingly against her. "There was quite a bit of support for me tonight, so I really appreciate that, because I know how loved Alex is. And for good reason." The 53,000 ticket request phenomenon was not just a number. It was proof that the Eala Effect had transformed Cincinnati. When the stadium emptied after her exit, the silence was a testament to what had been lost. But the empty stands also told another story, the story of a diaspora that travels, stays, and leaves when their hero leaves. When reports emerged that just 200 fans remained after Eala's exit, the tennis world took notice. The contrast was stark. Hours earlier, the stadium had been packed with thousands of Filipino fans waving flags, chanting her name, turning a tennis match into a celebration of pride. The stands that had roared with Eala were now empty. The empty stands were not a sign of fading interest. They were a sign of something far more powerful, a diaspora that travels, stays, and leaves when their hero leaves. In Cincinnati, the Filipino population is estimated at fewer than 2,000. But fans traveled from across the region, staying glued to their seats past midnight to support Eala. They weren't there for the tournament. They were there for her. And when she left, they left too. Anisimova's own admission in the post-match interview captured the reality of the situation. "I know how loved Alex is. And for good reason." She also acknowledged the late hour. "I felt like I needed a pick-me-up in this match because it's past my bedtime," Yahoo Sports reported. For the first time in months, there were not as many Filipino fans in attendance at Eala's match. It could have been the time of night. But the empty stands were a reminder of what makes the Eala phenomenon so unique. It's not about the tournament. It's not about the tennis. It's about a young woman from Manila who has become a symbol of Filipino pride. And when she exits, the community that came to support her has no reason to stay. The shift from a packed stadium to a sparse crowd is not a sign of fading interest. It's a sign of a diaspora that travels, stays, and leaves when their hero leaves. And with the U.S. Open on the horizon, where roughly 94,000 Filipinos live in Queens, the highest concentration in New York, the Eala Effect is far from finished. The silence that followed Eala's exit from Cincinnati was not a sign of defeat, it was a sign of devotion. The 200 fans who remained were not a measure of her popularity. They were a measure of the distance between the Filipino diaspora and the tennis establishment's understanding of what she represents. The Eala Effect doesn't end when she loses. It continues in New York, where roughly 94,000 Filipinos live, with the highest concentration in Queens, where the U.S. Open takes place. The U.S. Open is already looking to cash in on Eala's popularity, granting her a wild card into the mixed doubles alongside Felix Auger-Aliassime and scheduling an exhibition match against Iva Jovic. The empty stands in Cincinnati were not a verdict on Eala's career. They were a preview of what's to come. The diaspora that transformed Washington, Toronto, and now Cincinnati will be back in full force at Flushing Meadows. The flags will wave, the chants will echo, and Alex Eala, regardless of the result, will know that she carries her country with her wherever she goes. The Cincinnati Open is over, but the Eala Effect is far from finished. What happens when a young woman from Manila becomes the reason 53,000 people request tickets? What happens when a stadium empties not because the fans stopped caring, but because they came for one person? And when she leaves, so do they. And when Alex Eala steps onto the court at the U.S. Open, will the world finally understand that the Eala Effect isn't just about her? It's about a nation finding its voice. Alex Eala's Cincinnati Open run ended with a 6-4, 4-6, 2-6 loss to Amanda Anisimova, but the aftermath left the tournament in shock. Reports of 53,000 ticket requests confirmed the Eala Effect had transformed Cincinnati, with ticket prices skyrocketing by $160 per seat before selling out. When Eala exited, just 200 fans remained. Not a sign of fading interest, but proof of a diaspora that travels, stays, and leaves when their hero leaves. As Eala heads to the U.S. Open, where roughly 94,000 Filipinos live in Queens, the Eala Effect shows no signs of slowing down. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the biggest stories in tennis, drama, and emotion every single week. Don't miss what happens next.